people kind of have this idea that home ownership is always a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that home ownership can be a really bad decision in a few circumstances, one of which is if you aren't totally settled and know you're going to be somewhere for a while.
Hey, this is Tim Whalen, creator of Purpose Playbooks. I need to make sure that I'm clear about a few things before we get started.
Yeah.
I am a financial planner, but I will never give investment advice or recommend any investment products in this show or in any other public space.
I'm not talking about that.
Everyone has a different financial situation, and you should never implement any investing strategy, product, or advice without consulting a qualified financial professional.
And I hope you guys feel the same doggone way I feel.
This podcast is purely for educational purposes only. There are more disclosures at the end of the podcast.
What else do you want to know?
Enjoy the show.
All right, so Tim, this next question's a little more of a doozy, right? We got some more details coming at you. So we have a couple who's from Colorado, husband and wife, about our age, 30 years old, that were working in Colorado, bought a house, was living in the house. They realized it was too much house for what they could afford. So they got out of that house. They sold it a couple years after they purchased it. They made about $40,000 on it. Were able to use that to wipe out some debt. The husband took a job in Pittsburgh as a youth pastor. And they've been doing that for about a year. The wife kept the job that she was working in Colorado, doing it virtually. And now the couple wants to leave Pittsburgh, leave the youth pastor position, move back out to Colorado. Now, here's where the question comes in. It just so happens that the parents live right next to where the wife wants to work. So the question that they're wanting to ask is, should we move in with our parents who have offered for them to be able to live in their house rent-free for a while, save up some money, and then because housing prices are so high, they want to purchase some land with the eventual goal of building a house on that property? Your initial thoughts there.
Okay, so we've got several different questions. The first question is, should we live with our parents to save money? That's one of the questions. Another question is, should we buy land and then build a house? Few other questions in there about, potential job opportunities and things like that, but let's just tackle those. So the first question, should we live with our parents rent free in order to save up money to buy the house? So, this is going to be dependent on your individual situation. We've got a very healthy family dynamic. I don't think that would work really well in our situation, especially knowing that the timeline is pretty uncertain. There's not a lot of communication there. So I would encourage you to find a rental that's within your means, that's a small percentage of your take-home pay so that you can build up some savings to have options. So that being said, I've known some people that have done these kind of arrangements and it's worked out well. So it depends on your family relationship, depends on what your goals are. Financially, does it make sense to pay $0 in rent versus pay $1,000 in rent? Yeah, sure, that makes sense financially. I think you want to really think about this relationally and from a number of different perspectives other than just the financial. The second question is, should we do that for the purpose of buying land right away and then using that for a down payment on a house, or use that as collateral for a house that we would build? I think that's pretty dangerous. So a few things we already heard, you guys had gotten into some debt and you were able to take care of that problem by the appreciation of the previous home, but it sounds to me like you're still on a journey to get settled and figure out where you actually want to be going. And so I would encourage you to settle that issue first. One of the things that I found oftentimes in the mortgage business when I was doing mortgages is that people kind of have this idea that home ownership is always a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that home ownership can be a really bad decision in a few circumstances, one of which is if you aren't totally settled and know you're going to be somewhere for a while. Because if you're going to buy a house or build a house and then turn around and have to sell that a year or two down the road, most likely, now these guys got lucky the first time that they actually had some equity because the house had gone up in value, but most likely after you pay realtors and closing costs and moving costs and all that, oftentimes it's a very negative financial decision to own a house for just a short period of time. So I think that when we're thinking about homeownership being just a blanket good thing, I think you got to be careful there. And then when we're talking about the purpose that they were saying for buying the land and then building the house is that the real estate market is kind of hot there, and they thought they could save a lot of money by building. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but the price of lumber and all sorts of things have gone up dramatically in the past year or so. So I would be very surprised if they would end up in a situation that was better financially by building as opposed to buying. In fact, I think it's probably going to be significantly more expensive to build than to buy. Now, I don't know all the details about the market that they're in, but I think that there's often an illusion that buying or building a house is going to save a lot more money than buying a house. And I think that's often not the case. The reason to build a house would be, do you want to customize the house? Are you going to be there a long time? Do you want to build a dream home? There's some good reasons to build a house, but I don't think it's right in this situation. So that's where I land.
The opinions and views expressed here are for informational purposes only. This material is educational in nature and should not be deemed as a solicitation of any specific product or service. All investments involve risk and a potential loss of principal. We don't provide legal, accounting, or tax advice, but happily coordinate our services and work together with our clients' professional advisors. For specific assistance, the services of an appropriate professional should be sought. Securities offered through the ON Equity Sales Company, member FINRA SIPC, One Way Financial, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45242. Phone number 513-794-6794. Investment advisory services offered through ON Investment Management Company.